That is the you I see when I look in your direction, regardless of what you see when you look in the mirror on your most difficult days. And here is what I need that version of you to hear. Something is arriving, not approaching from some distant horizon where you can see it coming, but cannot yet gauge how long before it reaches you. Not still being assembled somewhere in the background while you wait in the foreground. Not standing by while conditions are being evaluated to determine whether you qualify. Arriving, moving toward you right now with the intentionality and the unstoppable momentum of a love that has never been deterred by obstacles, never been confused about its destination, never lost track of the specific address where it was sent. The love you have been wondering whether you deserve. The provision that covers the gap between what you have and what you need in ways that your own hands cannot quite reach. The blessing that has your name written on it in a handwriting that was chosen before you were born. Arriving at your home, arriving in your relationships, arriving in the particular corners of your life where the need has been most acute and the waiting has been most prolonged. It is in motion. It is real. And I do not say any of that to fill the space between where you are and where the fulfillment is with beautiful words that feel good to hear, but dissolve when they meet the reality of the actual situation. I say it because I want you standing in the right posture when what is coming actually arrives. I want your hands open. I want your heart less guarded than fear has been teaching it to be. I want your expectation alive rather than braced for the next disappointment, because the way you receive something determines how fully you can take it in, and what is coming deserves to be received at the full depth of you rather than deflected at the surface. Before I go forward into what is arriving, I need to spend real and unhurried time with where you have been, because the place you are walking out of is real. The cost of it has been real, and I will not pretend otherwise. I will not skip past the difficulty as though it were a minor inconvenience that barely registered on the scale of what you have been through. It registered. It cost you something. There are specific things the long, difficult season took from you that I want to name, because naming them is part of the restoration. It cost you confidence. Not all of it, not the last reserves of it, but enough that on certain days the confident version of yourself felt like someone you used to know rather than someone you currently were. It cost you the ease and the lightness that belong to a person who is not carrying something heavy through every ordinary hour of the day. It cost you the particular quality of sleep that comes naturally when there is nothing pressing against your chest during the quiet hours, and that absence of good rest accumulated in your body in ways you could feel even if you could not always name. It cost you the ability to be fully present in the good moments, because something in the background of your awareness was always quietly calculating and monitoring and bracing. I know what the long stretches of unmet expectation and unanswered longing do to a person. I know how gradual and subtle the erosion is, how it does not announce itself as a dramatic collapse, but accumulates patiently, question by question, delayed answer by delayed answer, small disappointment layered on small disappointment, until one ordinary morning you realize you are carrying something heavier than you remember picking up. And the moment when the weight increased is impossible to locate because the adding was so incremental that you did not notice any single addition. I know that. I have been watching you carry it. I have not been uninvolved or unmoved or looking away. I have been present in the carrying right alongside you, even when my presence was not perceptible to you through the fog of the difficulty. There is no version of your story in which I was the absent, indifferent spectator watching you struggle from a safe distance. I have been with you in it. I have been working through it in ways that were not yet visible to you from your position inside the experience. And the most important thing I was doing during that season is not something that was happening in your circumstances. The most important work was happening in you, in the depth of you, in the substance of your character, in the architecture of your inner life, in the capacity of your heart to hold more than it could hold before the difficulty began. The painful seasons do work, but the comfortable seasons cannot do. And I was doing the most significant and most valuable work of your entire formation during the chapter that felt, from the inside, like a simple season of loss and delay and unanswered prayer. Let me tell you what I have seen while watching you move through this difficult passage. I have seen you make choices for faithfulness on days when faithfulness offered no visible return, and the only reward for choosing it was the integrity of having chosen it. I have seen you get up and keep going on mornings when the case for getting up was not obvious, and nothing in your circumstances was providing encouragement for the effort. I have seen you absorb more than your share of the weight that surrounded you, keeping it from falling on the people you love at the cost of carrying it yourself, in the private places where only I could see what you were holding. I have seen you hold your tongue when speaking your real feelings out loud would have been easy and honest and entirely defensible. I have seen you kneel in prayer when the emotional reality underneath your words was closer to doubt than to faith. And I want you to understand something about those prayers that I suspect you have misunderstood. Those prayers did not fail to count. The fact that you prayed while doubting does not make the prayer a lesser prayer. It makes it a more costly one. It means that the act of coming to me required something from you, rather than feeling natural and easy, and you came anyway. That kind of coming is among the most significant things I witness in a human heart. It is the kind of faithfulness that does not depend on feeling faithful, that keeps its orientation toward me, even when every feeling is pointing in a different direction. I count those prayers. I honor those prayers. I receive those prayers. Not one of them dissolved into nothing. Not one of them missed the mark of my attention. Every one of them landed exactly where it needed to land, and accomplished in the invisible world exactly what it needed to accomplish. Now, let me open the door to what is arriving, and I want to move through each dimension of what blessing at your home means, because I want this to be as concrete and specific as I can make it, rather than resting in the kind of generality that is easy to receive in one moment and easy to forget in the next. When I say that love is arriving at your home, I am speaking about something that is both larger and more specific than the word usually carries when people use it in passing. I am speaking about love of a particular quality, not the version that is really just approval, the warm feeling that is present when you are performing well and absent when you are not at your best. Not the conditional warmth that operates as a kind of exchange, available in proportion to what is being received from you in the transaction. Not the love that is genuinely felt, but fragile, dependent on circumstances remaining favorable, disappearing when the circumstances change. I am speaking about the kind of love that sees everything about a person, including the parts that are not easy to see and the parts the person would not choose to have seen, and chooses that person fully, without reservation, with a commitment that does not waver when the person is less than their best. The kind that fills rooms, the kind that makes people feel safe in ways they cannot fully explain, the kind that restores what has been broken between people who genuinely care for each other and have been separated by misunderstanding or hurt, or the simple accumulation of distance that happens when two people are each carrying something heavy, and neither has the surplus energy to close the gap. I have been cultivating in you through this difficult season a capacity to both give and receive this kind of love that is genuinely larger now than it was when the difficulty began. The passage was enlarging. You can hold more. You can give more. You can receive more without the reflexive deflection that comes from having been hurt and having your nervous system learn to preempt further hurt by not letting love fully in. What is coming will find more room in you than what came before found. And let me be specific about what love arriving looks like when it actually reaches your daily life, because I do not want this to remain at the level of beautiful abstraction. Love arriving looks like something shifting in the atmosphere between the people in your household. It looks like conversations that have been stuck for a long time, beginning slowly and tentatively at first, and then with increasing ease to move again. It looks like the particular distance that settles between people who love each other but have stopped being able to close the gap beginning to narrow. Not through a single heroic conversation, but through the accumulation of small moments of unexpected warmth, of choosing kindness when irritation was available, of remembering why the other person matters when what they just said makes mattering feel less obvious. It looks like forgiveness finding the runway it needs to actually land, rather than circling indefinitely in the air above the situation that required it. It looks like laughter returning to rooms that have been too serious for too long. It looks like people who are together actually being together, present, available, choosing each other's company rather than enduring it. That is what love arriving looks like. It is not usually announced with trumpets. It is most often felt in the small shifts, the slightly easier conversation, the unexpected moment of warmth, the look that communicates something that does not need words. Those small shifts are my signature on your daily life. When you feel them, recognize them for what they are. I want to speak at length now about provision, because I know this is a dimension of the blessing arriving that is not abstract for you. The need is specific. The gaps are real. The arithmetic that has been troubling you has numbers with actual values in it, and the distance between those numbers has been a source of genuine distress. I know the particular shape of the financial pressure you have been living with. I know how it arrives in the night hours when the numbers run themselves without your permission. I know the specific calculations that your mind returns to most persistently. The obligations that are not met, the resources that are insufficient, the gap between the two that stubbornly refuses to close in the way it needs to. I know that this kind of sustained financial pressure does something to a person beyond the practical problem it presents. It affects the way you see yourself. It affects the stories you tell about your situation and about your future, and about whether the future will be fundamentally different from the present, or whether this is simply the condition of your life indefinitely. It affects the quality of your rest and the freedom of your thinking and your capacity to be fully present in moments that deserve your full presence. I am not unmoved by any of that. Every aspect of what the financial pressure has cost you beyond the purely practical is known to me, and it is part of what I am addressing in the provision that is arriving. The provision I am releasing is not the thin, barely sufficient kind that meets the immediate need and leaves you immediately back at the edge of the same shortage with nothing to spare.